It is the story about how 228 Tanzanian people lost their lives. On the 20th of September 2018, the residents on Ukereri Island, a large picturesque island located in Lake Victoria, Tanzania, had no reason whatsoever to suspect that that day would be any different. They were going about their day-to-day lives. However, that day, a public ferry called MV Nyerere, capable of ferrying over 100 people and cargo around the various islands in Lake Victoria, arrived at the ferry port for a routine trip. After it filled up with eager passengers, the ferry left Ukereri Island and it was destined for another lake island. This island is called Island Yukara, located about 10 kilometers north. As they ferried along Lake Victoria, it went at a snail's pace. This was because it was exceptionally overloaded. Not only were they shipping cement, maize and even a tractor, the ferry was then holding at an estimate 300 to 400 people, which was at 4 times the maximum capacity of the vessel. Little did the unsuspecting characters know that a routine voyage would soon turn into a tragic tale of terror. As the sun-kissed view of the Yukara ferry port was bearing near, the MV Nyerere ferry came into dock. However, at this time, the captain was steering this vessel was completely engrossed into his mobile phone device, oblivious to the impending disaster. Passengers were pleading for his attention, urging for him to focus on the wheel, but he completely ignored them and focused on his phone call. As he was talking on his phone, he came into port and then suddenly realised that the ship was on the completely wrong side. To avoid docking at the wrong side, 50 metres away from the dock, the helmsman made a sudden sharp turn. Panic gripped the ferry as it listed to one side in a harrowing twist of fate. It then lurched to the other side, plunging into the depths of Lake Victoria, taking everyone and everything with it. People stood by the dock and watched on at the tragedy unfolding. Tragically, only a small handful of survivors managed to get away from the sinking vessel, swimming desperately to the shores. Inside the boat, it was an absolute nightmare. Many of the people were in the centre of the cabin in the ship, and when it overturned, there was no way to escape. Some people were trapped in their rooms because the hallways were overflowing with deceased passengers that was keeping them from their salvation. Over the next few days, many remained trapped within their rooms. One survivor, named Hamid, described the terrifying events of being trapped within an air pocket. He was floating in the pitch-black cold water with deceased people floating all around him, and all the time he prayed he would be found. However, hours turned into days, and there was no sign of rescue. He could hear bangs and noises coming from outside, but they couldn't hear him. He screamed into the void until he lost his voice. He remained here for 40 hours with no food or water before divers finally found him. Days later, the boat was overturned and the official toll of deceased persons was announced. This tragic event had taken the lives of over 228 people and had orphaned over 400 children, a truly heart-wrenching outcome. The news of the terrifying disaster spread like wildfire, soon reaching President John Magufuli, and in an address to his nation, he revealed the grim truth of the incident. A trained captain was not present, and to make matters even worse, the individual in charge of the MV Nyerere was ill-prepared for the responsibility. With this, a 4-day of mourning was announced, and President John Magufuli ordered the arrest of the ferry's management, holding them directly responsible for gross negligence and intentionally overloading the vessel. Don't forget to give us a follow and a like, as we upload content every single day. If there is a story that you would like for us to feature, you can either send us a DM or simply comment below, and we'll see you in the next video.
In 1999, the murder of Mwivano Kupaza, a girl from Tanzania, shocked and terrified the state of Wisconsin. The young woman's life had been brutally taken, leading police investigators on a harrowing journey to uncover the truth behind her tragic death. The details surrounding the case show us a heinous crime and the innovative use of technology to solve the mystery. The dismembered remains of Mwivano Kupaza were discovered in dark-colored garbage bags along the banks of the Wisconsin River. The brutal nature of the crime and the removal of skin and flesh from her face to avoid identification painted a bleak picture of the events that unfolded. It was clear that she had been the victim of a homicide, but the exact cause remained undetermined. At one point, the investigation focused on a potential suspect in New Hampshire, a man who had murdered a woman in a similar way. However, careful documentation of this suspect's whereabouts ruled him out of any involvement in the murder of Mwivano, leaving investigators searching for a new lead. To aid in identification, engineers at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee used state-of-the-art 3D printing technology to create a replica of the victim's skull. The facial reconstruction based on this replica provided a crucial clue: the possibility that Mwivano was of African descent. Mwivano's former roommates recognized the facial reconstruction image and reported the striking resemblance to their University of Wisconsin-Madison acquaintance. Her identity was confirmed by comparing fingerprints recovered from the victim's remains with fingerprints on papers she had written. The focus of the investigation turned to Mwivano's cousin, Peter Kupaza. The victim had made allegations of sexual abuse against her cousin, creating a tense relationship between the two. The authorities became suspicious as Peter had provided conflicting information about Mwivano's whereabouts. Despite his denial of any involvement, the evidence against him was clear. Kupaza had lied throughout the case. He had a familiarity with the river where the remains were discovered. To the contrary, the evidence provided a motive that Kupaza killed Mwivano because she was a constant financial liability to him. During the trial, Peter Kupaza took the stand, pleading his innocence. However, the weight of the evidence led to his arrest and subsequent conviction for the murder of Mwivano. The chilling details of the case and the family connection added another layer of complexity to this tragic story. Mwivano Kupaza's murder serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk within seemingly ordinary lives. The relentless search for the truth in this case, coupled with the innovative use of technology, forever left its mark on Wisconsin's criminal history. Reflecting on Mwivano's story, we are forced to ask ourselves, how far can the search for justice take us? And how can we prevent such horrors from repeating themselves in our society?
Here are some traditions only people from Tanzania will understand. Don't do things with your left hand. Eating with your right hand is the most appropriate in Tanzania. Whether you're collecting something or giving something to someone, keep your left hand to yourself. Steer clear from PDAs. The saying, "get a room," applies very much to Tanzanian society. So, hugs, kisses, and cuddles are not allowed. So just do them in a hotel room. Sniffing food. It is wrong to sniff food in Tanzania, especially if you're a visitor. This is actually a sign of distaste, and even if you enjoy the aroma of the food before eating, it is frowned upon. Do you know that Tanzanians hardly get angry? It is hard to encounter a Tanzanian who will greet you with a frown. Tanzanians are brought up with love, politeness, and respect for elders. Ask for consent before you take photos. The people love tourists coming around to photograph them, but you must take permission before you do so. Don't argue with the older generation. As much as humans make mistakes and learn every day, elders in Tanzania don't want to be perceived as wrong decision makers. So even if they're wrong, don't argue with them. Keep your opinion to yourself. Hakuna Matata. It means no worries for the rest of your days. It means no trouble. It means take it easy. This popular Swahili phrase is actively practiced by the people of Tanzania, and visitors should actually practice it too. Traditional healers. As much as many African countries resort to Western medical practices, Tanzanians still practice traditional healthcare. This includes herbs and plants as medicines, witch doctors, and supernatural cures.
3 scary paranormal legends you may have never heard of. The Papabawai. Papabawai is the name of an evil spirit or shaitani which is believed by residents of Zanzibar to have first appeared on the Tanzanian island of Pemba. In 1995, it was the focus of a major outbreak of mass hysteria or panic which spread from Pemba to Unguja, the main island of the Zanzibar archipelago, and across to Dar es Salaam and other urban centers on the East African coast. Papabawa is a shapeshifter and described as taking different forms, not just that of a bat as its name implies. It is sometimes associated with the presence of a sulfurous odor, but this is not always the case. Papabawa attacks men, women, and children. According to believers, the Papabawa will creep into your room in the dark of night and attack you in your own bed. Sometimes a sulfur smell accompanies the creature, and occasionally it is heard on the roof, claws scraping, before it enters. The Nalbiye. Nalbiye or Nalbiye come tomorrow in English is an Indian urban legend involving a malevolent spirit dressed as a bride who manipulates people into letting her inside their homes. Villagers would write Nalbiye above their door or on their walls to prevent the entry of the malevolent spirit. It is believed that this spirits or witches roam at night and take away children. The Rake. The Rake is a creature believed to be a humanoid in appearance, but usually crouches and walks on all fours. With several references in folklore and horrific urban legends, the creature reportedly attacks humans for unknown reasons and often causes its victims great psychological trauma. The most famous story of the Rake involves a woman waking to find the monster sitting at the edge of her bed. The character is often said to creep into bedrooms, induce nightmares, and observe the dreamers for a time before killing them.
Lake Natron in northern Tanzania is one of the harshest environments on Earth. Temperatures in the lake can rise to 140 F 160 C and the alkalinity is between pH 9 and pH 10.5. Almost as alkaline as ammonia. This causes animal crushing into the water to calcify and look like stone figurines when they dry, save certain kinds of fish have evolved to survive in such a caustic environment.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of my series, Folklore Fridays. Today we're going to be talking about this guy right here, the Mungwa from Tanzania. The name Mungwa in Swahili roughly translates to the strange one. He is also sometimes called Nunda, which is Swahili for a fierce animal. In terms of appearance, the Mungwa looks like a very large cat, as you can see there. However, it is much larger than most cats, being closer to the size of a donkey or a medium-sized horse. They have broad, muscular bodies and their tails are very thick. The coats of the Mungwa are gray and have a brindle pattern on that, similar to that of a tabby or a civet. They also have spots near their eyes. The tracks reportedly, although similar to leopard tracks, are more similar in size to lion tracks. As you can see in this image right here, they also have a mane or pseudo-mane similar to that of a lion. This is also supported by the fact that when the bodies of the maimed and killed people are discovered, there are gray tufts of fur found at the scene of the crime. Attacks have been reported since the early 19th century and even to as late as the 1930s. Also, like the chupacabra, they are known to attack livestock, not just humans. According to stories, a Sultan Majnun, a rich nobleman, had a pet cat. It grew at a rapid pace and started eating animals like chickens. Soon the cat started eating and killing bigger prey, progressing to calves and goats, to a cow, to a horse, and even a camel. Eventually, of course, this cat decided to start eating humans. It started with children and then eventually moved on to fully grown adults. The Sultan during this time absolutely defended this cat to the bitter end and refused to do anything about the killings. The Mungwa terrorized the town near its lair so much that it drove it to near desertion. A day came where the Sultan and his 6 sons decided to go on a tour of the country. Unfortunately, tragedy struck and the Mungwa killed 3 of the Sultan's children. The Sultan finally broke down and renamed the beast Nunda. He ordered it killed immediately. Supposedly, the 7th son of the Sultan actually found the Mungwa and killed it. However, that does not explain the sightings that we have had up until the 1930s. The Mungwa is seen as a very elusive animal, as despite all of these reports, no one has been able to catch sight of one truly, like on photograph, or kill it, which means we have no specimens. Supposedly, hunters did kill multiples of these animals, they just never returned with the body as proof. The Mongol went on a killing spree in Tanzania, and the bodies were discovered with gray hair and a brindle pattern on it near them. For some reason, it suddenly stopped. In 1922, analysis was done on some hair, but it was inconclusive. The theory is that this is just a mutated king cheetah, which I think would be pretty cool because I love them. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next week.
1 Minute Horrors Episode 96. Man dies while proposing underwater at vacation. Viewer discretion is advised. On September 19, 2019, 40-year-old Louisiana, United States man Stephen Weber and his girlfriend Kenesha Antoine went to go to vacation off of Pemba Island in Tanzania, a country in East Africa. They went to stay in a partially submerged hotel named the Manta Resort. A video posted by Antoine shows the 40-year-old Weber swimming outside the underwater room, holding a handwritten proposal note. "I can't hold my breath long enough to tell you everything I love about you, but everything I love about you, I love you more every day." Then Weber flipped it over to the other side, which asked, "Will you marry me?" and pulled out a jewelry box with his swim trunks. He opened it to reveal a ring before swimming out of view of the video. Unfortunately, Weber failed to resurface back from the water, and it was too late to perform CPR onto him when emergency responders pulled him back onto the surface. Antoine wrote on Facebook that Weber never got to hear her answer, which would have been a million times yes.
Hello horror fans and welcome. Let's get right into this video and not waste any more time. Yo, what's up? These are short but terrifying scary stories. Part 1. The Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic. On January 30th, 1962, at a boarding school near Tanzania's border with Uganda, 3 girls started laughing uncontrollably. This laughter epidemic spread throughout the school, affecting 95 students, causing the students to be sent home and the school to be forced to close temporarily. It eventually spread to nearby villages and died off after about 18 months, but in that whole time frame, it closed in total over 14 schools and affected over 1,000 people. Now, it was then ruled out in some hypothetical theory that it was just a mass stressful episode, but who's to say this wasn't some kind of psychogenic illness attack, and that it didn't start right there in Tanzania?
This incident took place in Zanzibar, Tanzania in the 1990s. It was just another usual day, and I had gone to my dad's shop after school to help him with his business. We both came back home at around 6 p.m., had dinner, and I went to my room to read books. I loved reading books. That day I fell asleep early. Normally I would sleep late on the weekends, but since I had the flu and had taken medicine that made me drowsy, I felt the need to rest. At around 1 or 2 a.m., I woke up suddenly to a loud noise. It sounded like something was banging. We had a big tree in our backyard, and it seemed like the noise came from there. Curious, I got up to check, and to my horror, I saw a woman dressed in black with white hair. She was running towards the tree and banging herself against it. It was strange, like she had some mental illness. After banging, she would dance like she was happy about it before running and banging again. After the second bang, she stopped and turned to look at me. She had a weird smile and her head was tilted. I can still remember that moment vividly. I screamed as loud as I could, and my parents rushed into my room. The other thing that disturbed me a lot was the way the woman ran. It was very strange, almost like an animal. She ran, jumped over the fence, and disappeared into the night. After that incident, I slept in my parents' room for a few days until I felt better. Luckily, I never saw that woman again, and nothing strange has happened since.